Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme. Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme. Put a line in the 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 line 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 line. Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme. Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme. Put a line in the 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 line 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 line.
We're in Los Angeles, and so this should give you an idea of what the city-like areas of Los Angeles would traditionally look like before it was blown over with concrete. At the moment, we are in talks about the environment and how we've got to where we're at, and how we could possibly reverse it and make it a green place once again. A lot of folks are afraid of things like fire. Unfortunately, it's the conditioning of city life where we're taught to be afraid of the animals, we're taught to be afraid of the natural life, but in reality, we are nature. So I think the idea is getting back to that, and what that would look like would also include the cultural burns. We live in a time where everything needs a permit. Everything needs permission. If I am just to go and practice my culture in, let's say, a cultural burn, I could likely go to jail, get fined, get arrested. And so it's mending relationships or creating relationships with our agencies. When we can teach these agencies that our way of life is actually a good preventative measure to these scary, overgrown fires, then I think we can do some good work together.
You know, our relationship with plants is so deep. It has to be reciprocal, right? We have to ask permission before we take anything. We have to offer a gift. We have to let the plant know what it is that we need so that it can help us. And we need to make sure that we don't take too much from any one plant or any one area. The challenge that we as Tongva people and also other California tribal people who do not have a land base, the challenge that we face is the fact that all of the lands that are so key and important to us, that are still natural, belong to somebody. We're not able to access it, at least not without permits or without permission. So that's our challenge, is that there's so many spaces that should be natural, should be kept and allowed to grow the way it's supposed to. And it's being maintained by people who are disconnected.
One thing that people can really do to help the environment, especially here in Southern California and Baja California, is to no longer use smudge sticks, especially if you buy it. We still have a relationship with white sage, but it was originally a food source where we were able to gather seeds and other parts of the plant for food, and we can no longer do that because the demand for smudge sticks increased so much that white sage is now being poached from our original gathering grounds. White sage should always be a gift given openly after growing it and having a relationship with that sage. If you're buying it in bundles, you are not receiving that blessing, and you are appropriating our culture because you're exploiting our plant.
I think it's important for people to understand, coming from my community, a Tiat society, coming from a canoe family, our most important resource is our ocean. The ability to travel between our mainland and our islands, especially Catalina Island. And unfortunately, we're not able to fully embrace our maritime culture as traditionally we would because of our inability to do our crossings. A lot of our inability comes from the fact that our oceans are so contaminated. Not only the acidity in the water that affects our canoes, which are made of redwood, which are made of natural resources, but also the fact that we have barges crossing through our waterways, our traditional freeways, how we get to cross through the water to get to our islands. It also affects our ability not only for us to take our canoes out, but also for the safety of our paddlers themselves.
I'm Bob Ramirez, and I am the president of the Gabrielino Tongva Springs Foundation, which is the entity that was created 30 years ago in order to preserve and protect, restore and revitalize Kuduvungna, the ancient village where we're sitting here on. And our goal is to educate the people as well about the Tongva, because this is a place where Kuduvungna means place where we gather in the sun. So we want to recreate the idea of a village where everybody is welcome and they can help and participate in the cleanup of the site, the maintenance of the site, the restoration, and learn about the ecology here and the native plants and animals and how they're woven together. So when they go back to their own homes and they go forward in life, they have a deeper understanding of the value of native people, native plants, native creatures, the entities, the relationships that we have that are based right here on this piece of land. This was for thousands of years a village inhabited by our people. And the descendants are still here. I think in our hearts when we come here, we feel a connection. That's why we're all here. I think we know this is our home. And even though we can't say we own it, because what does that mean? We do own it. This is land back.
Our status quo says that polluting industry is a necessary evil. It says that concentrating polluting industries in low-income communities of color is acceptable. And I think changing that status quo is really at the heart of what our work is about.
Some of the programs that we've helped develop at the port have reduced trucking emissions by 80%. This means less asthma, less cancer, less hospitalizations, especially for communities that live close to the port and all along trucking corridors.
While we have a long way to go still, the solutions that we've already implemented here in the Southern California region are being exported to other parts of the country and other parts of the world.
I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I really do this work every day for my children. There's sometimes I'm sure I feel like taking my children and running for the hills, but I know I need to stay here and fight for them.
We can avoid the worst effects of climate change if we do today what we know needs to be done.
If we're gonna do something, we gotta do it now. California has been leading the way and has been showing others that we can still be the 5th greatest economy in the world and care for our environment.
NRDC's Southern California office, I think about it as a laboratory for change and the huge amount of success we've been able to have on issues locally.
It's a remarkable body of work. And of course, what makes it possible is a remarkable group of people.
They're passionate people, they're committed, they've been working on these issues for years, and they have a huge coalition of supporters behind them.
I do what I do because I want to live my life with a purpose, with passion.
You have to be an idealist at heart.
If I weren't optimistic at some level, I wouldn't be working here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
I find a lot of joy and a lot of warmth in caring. And NRDC provides that platform to care and to fight for what you care for and to embrace what you care about.
I feel privileged to do the work. I feel proud of the work that I've been able to do over many, many years. And I think that feeling is shared by all of us who work at NRDC. We're making a positive contribution to the world. And that makes life worthwhile.
Fighting for change politically requires faith.
We are building an army of young people to stop the climate crisis and create millions of good jobs for our generation.
Everyone wants to talk about this dispassionately, but this is the world that I will raise my kids in.
The more centrist wing is arguing that they want to maintain the status quo.
Ain't nobody gonna keep us down.
This is going to be the moonshot of our generation. Moments of crisis crack open the window of possibility.
We just climb that mountain.
Sometimes I feel like my job is to get my hands dirty. You're not gonna trick us. Hell no. Now is the time to leverage our power. We have tens of thousands of new people joining.
We're in the battle for the soul of the Democratic Party. Make them feel like they're gonna lose their seats if they don't support this.
As long as there are people that you can poison without consequence, there will always be a loophole that the fossil fuel industry can exploit.
It's possible to both decarbonize and keep equity and justice at the center. That was classy. Oh, thank you. I'm not often called classy. Tell my mom. The media is expecting us to fail.
Some of us have to actually live the future that you all are setting on fire.
We're going to make historic investments that will seize the opportunity.
We got the candidate that was nominated to come to us.
We're either going to go out in a blaze of glory or we're going to win what we want.
America has faced threats before and come out stronger. When you're one step away from success, that's when they want you to think you're the furthest. But you are close. You are close.
Super. I'm learning so much today. I learned about the Inflation Reduction Act. You guys hear about this thing? It's called IRA. Yeah, it's supposed to clean up your energy, not with crystals. I feel like that's important to point out in Los Angeles. We're not talking about stones in your bras. Okay. No, I did think it was weird, the Inflation Reduction Act. It's got nothing to do with inflation. They just called it that to get everybody to agree to it, like to get on board, which is why I'm no longer a lesbian, okay? I am a boob lover. We're all on board with that, I think. Well, at least I tell myself. I actually been thinking about getting an electric vehicle, an EV. Hold for applause, okay. No, I know they're really great for the environment, and that's super. I definitely consider that. But what I'm thinking is they're just so smart now. Like they're getting so smart, they're so stylish and cool. Like, I just want to get one because I think they're going to be like the new iPhone, and I don't want to be driving around in an Android, okay? I don't think so. I'm not going to be making the chat green for everyone. Gross. Feel the shame, Android users. No, I've been thinking about getting one. It will have to be a Subaru, obviously. But they have one, the Solterra. You guys heard of the Solterra? I think it means like sun and earth. What is with these EV car names? Like, why do they have to hit us over the head with the fact that it's good for the environment? It drives me a little crazy, a little. Like, they're like the Volt and the Leaf. Like, we get it. Also, it's a Subaru. Like, lesbians are going to buy it. You could call it like the box, you know? We'll definitely gobble it up. I have to keep this PG-13. So I've been told, okay, too much? Oh, too late. Oh, has it been real dirty in here? What's going on with you climate change enthusiasts? Okay. They're like, yeah, we don't want it to be hot in here because we make it hot enough. I heard you guys talking about the heat pump. I'm savvy. I got it. What else is going on with me? I've been going through like a lot, to be honest with you. I think this is just like a theory I have. I think that like what we're doing for the environment is great and trying to message people is good, but like, what if we just start lying? Right? Like, fossil fuel companies have been doing it forever. I think we should give it a try too. I'll get more into that later. I have specific lies I think will work. We'll get into it. Later, but I've got to bring up the next panel right now. The next moderator. You guys excited? We're hype? Yes, let's learn. Awesome. So your next moderator is actually founded the NRDC's documentary unit. Please welcome Daniel Heinerfeld.
Thank you, Casey. That was great. Hello, climate activists and storytellers. It is really great to be here, really inspiring today and yesterday. So I'm Daniel. I'm a generously speaking middle-aged white male with rapidly graying brown hair, and I'm wearing a blue blazer and a check shirt. Okay. I just wanted to actually start with props for Impact and the Hollywood Climate Summit because, yes. what they've done over the past several years is amazing. They've really built, with some assistance, but they've really led the way in building a climate movement in Hollywood, and that really matters. Okay, my pronouns are he, him, his. So I work at NRDC. I direct Rewrite the Future, which essentially helps Hollywood tell the story of climate change. We do that in a number of ways, and you can check us out at nrdc.org/rewrite the future. So, you know, the fossil fuel industry spends a lot of money telling stories about climate change, stories in which they are heroes who power the American economy, and climate change is a liberal fever dream. Stories in which you and I are villains who jeopardize American prosperity and national security. And, you know, their purpose is obvious. It's to deny, delay, deflect, divide, cast doubt, and sow confusion. And they do it despite knowing that climate change is real and probably catastrophic. As many of you know, BP, which is actually, of course, British Petroleum, popularized the carbon calculator, we heard that earlier, to shift the focus and responsibility away from their products and infrastructure and toward the energy use of us individuals. You know, it does a number of things, but one of them is it helps us, makes us feel guilty and despondent, which they love, instead of angry and fired up. You know, they refer to climate change as a quote-unquote risk instead of acknowledging it as a reality. And their own PR executives call these tactics, quote, semantic infiltration, the process whereby language does the dirty work of politics, unquote. So aided by their puppets in Congress, the industry has turned Americans against one another, and they have obstructed robust action on climate change for decades. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, was the first meaningful federal climate action ever. Last year, the profits made by oil companies hit a record high, $219 billion. This year, according to NASA, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere also hit a record high of 421 parts per million. Both numbers keep rising, pushing us down a path to destruction. As Reverend Yearwood said earlier today, this is not a game. We are, in fact, in a death struggle with the fossil fuel industry. However, and here's the key, it's a war for hearts and minds. It's a communications battle, and the fossil fuel industry's endless money is not enough to win. This fight will be won by the power of narrative. And you know what? We are better storytellers. We will win this war by telling the true story of climate change, the dramatic story of climate change, the tragic, comic, romantic, adventurous story of climate change, the diverse and inclusive story of climate change. The story of everyday heroes learning to cope in a climate-altered world, coming together to demand climate justice and to invent climate solutions. Heroes like the members of East Yard communities for environmental justice right here in the City of Commerce, and activists at the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization in Chicago, and the community watchdogs at Tejas, the Texas Environmental Justice Advocacy Services. Our job, your job, is to shine a light on the vital work being done in communities across the country, to tell stories that celebrate community and caring instead of glorifying wealth and consumption. Stories that make audiences feel in their bones what really matters in life: justice, dignity, and humanity. It means showing solutions, big and small, to help audiences envision what a positive future looks like, because people won't rise up and demand a future they can't imagine. You have the creativity, you have the power, you have the privilege, and it is a privilege, to lead us to a better, more equitable future. And now it's my privilege to introduce the moderator of our panel, Sabrina Schmidt-Gordon. Sabrina is a producer, director, and Emmy-winning editor. She's the producer of the critically acclaimed films Quest and To the End, both of which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. Her most recent film, Victim Suspect, which I can't wait to watch, was produced with the Center for Investigative Reporting. It also premiered at Sundance in January, and very recently it's been in Netflix top 10 films. So please welcome Sabrina Schmidt-Gordon.
Hello, everyone. And I don't know if it was mentioned, but the trailer that you just saw for To the End, that's also my film, which premiered at Sundance in 2022 and is currently streaming on Hulu. And hopefully we'll get to talk about it a little bit in the context of this conversation that we're having now. But first, let me I forgot. My pronouns are she, her. I am wearing a black dress. I have longish, curly, frizzy hair, and I'm wearing my brand new Adidas pink kicks. So let me introduce our panelists. First, we have Bryce Cracknell. He is a writer, producer, and director from North Carolina, based in Los Angeles. He is directing and producing a hybrid documentary on climate justice with FET Brown and Game Changer Films. He got his start in the industry by leading social impact campaigns for narrative and documentary features and television shows, including Descendant, Flee, My Name is Polly Murray, John Lewis' Good Trouble, Just Mercy, and When They See Us. Please welcome him to the stage. So Bryce, say hi to everyone and give your visual description.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bryce Cracknell. My pronouns are he, him. I'm currently wearing green pants that are a little short, a cotton kind of fun shirt, and a brownish gray jacket. My hair is curly and locked, and it's down to my shoulders.
Cool. Our next panelist is Heather McTeer-Toney. She was the first African American, first female, and the youngest mayor to serve the city of Greenville, Mississippi from 2004 to 2012. In 2014, she was appointed by President Barack Obama as regional administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency's Southeast region, and she is the author of Before the Streetlights Come On, Black America's Call to Climate Action. Please welcome her to the stage. Say hi and describe your beautiful dress and your pronouns.
Well, hello, everyone. Heather McTeer-Toney. I am a Southern Black mama, so my pronouns are very, very feminine, try, and me. I'm wearing a very ethnically inspired natural fabric dress from Mayati, inspired by African prints. My hair feels like cotton with a little gel in it, short afro, and my skin shines and smells like joy.
Woo! Thank you. Our next panelist is Tricia Levesque, Managing Director for the Decolonizing Wealth Project. Tricia brings experience in various sectors, including law, business, and human capital management. Her previous charitable sector work includes consulting for a wide range of organizations, and most recently as an executive producer for the web series Wedlocked, which she was an official selection of the Cleveland International Film Festival and the Pan-African Film Festival. So please welcome her to the stage.
I got it. Tricia Levesque. My pronouns are she and her. I am wearing pink cowboy boots because I was feeling very urban cowboy. I have a black t-shirt and a long pencil pink shirt on. I had aspirations to wear a vintage shirt, and I realized I was going to sweat through it. So I did not do that, and I wore a black shirt instead. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Our next panelist is Meredith Milton, who is creative director of NRDC's Rewrite the Future. She is also a producer and longtime studio executive. Most recently, she made The Eyes of Tammy Faye for Searchlight, which won the Academy Awards for Best Actress and Best Hair and Makeup. And over the course of her career, she has overseen a diverse slate of films, including all 5 films in the Step Up franchise and its TV series Adaptation. Welcome, Meredith.
Hi, I'm Meredith Milton, as previously introduced. I'm wearing black jeans and a pair of clogs that I love, and a shirt that has plants on it, and a black blazer, and I have brown hair, and I'm 5 feet tall. But I've been eating a lot of microplastics, and pretty soon I'm gonna look just like Barbie.
Our next panelist is Heather Phipps, who is co-founder and EP of the Hollywood Climate Summit and program director of the Redford Center. As a professor of media and social impact at Cal State LA, she founded a service for the city of LA that pairs filmmakers with frontline organizations to create community-led video campaigns. And previously, Heather was the head of production at the studio of Mark Bradford. Please welcome her to the stage and thank her for this amazing event.
Hi, thanks everyone. My name is Heather Phipps. My pronouns are she, her. I have reddish brownish hair. I am wearing a neon green shirt and a blue jacket with a also neon green stripe that was picked out by Allie Weinstein. Thank you, Allie.
All right, so we are all here. So first I have to give another shout out to Heather because she, through the Redford Center, was one of the funders of To the End. So thank you, Heather. We could not have done it without you. So, we have like a slate of questions that we sort of plan together to discuss, but I think we need to kind of sort of set the table first as like climate storytellers to talk a little bit, because I mean, our experience is so diverse. I think it would be worthwhile for each other, and for the audience to sort of have a sense of what we all do in our approach to our work. I'll start. Since you happen to see the clip of my film, I'm a documentary filmmaker. The way I think about my work as my activism, that storytelling is my activism. And I learn from the people who are doing the work on the ground about how to use my work, and I offer my work as a tool to support the work that they are already doing, to figure out ways that they can leverage the film in a way that amplifies their work, that grows their work, grows their support, and hopefully maybe even brings new ideas and innovations to the table if at all possible. But I feel like I'm always led by community. I'm always led by the people who are the experts. And what I do is I bring a skill set that hopefully moves the needle forward in meaningful ways. When I think about like what stories I want to tell, one thing I want to say is that I think for any topic, and climate is no exception, is that there's always more than one story that can be told about any given subject. And there's more than one entry point to all of these issues. And there's more than one style even about the kinds of stories we tell. So I feel very agnostic and very respectful of all the different ways people want to tell stories. Some people, for example, do very explainer type films that give you lots of stats and information and through fancy graphics and celebrities and so on. That's not really my style, but I think that stuff is valid. When we're talking about climate films, I think about films that can be about polar ice caps on one hand, but there are all kinds of other stories, as you know, and I like to think that one of my films is a very different entry point into the climate conversation. So I try to think about, for any topic, what is the film that I want to see? And what maybe is missing, I think is missing in the conversation. So with To the End, one of the things that was very intentional and important about this story is that a couple things. One is that it centers the communities that are most impacted and vulnerable to the climate crisis, who are impacted on a day-to-day basis. And I thought that was very important because there's a way in which climate can sometimes be spoken about as a bit of an abstraction, and it is not an abstraction. So we're talking about frontline communities, we're talking about communities of color. At the same time, I also wanted to see those communities represented as agents of change as well, which is why we follow 4 women of color who are on the front lines of the fight for the Green New Deal, which is also, in terms of the solution, intersectional in its approach. It's about fighting the climate crisis using racial justice and economic justice as an integral part of this solution, that they are inextricably linked. And those are the kinds of distinctions that I felt like I wasn't really getting in like whatever climate stories that I was exposed to. So those are the things that sort of drove my choices and drove the way I wanted to tell the story. I don't like, it's not about like showing like the Green New Deal is like in these like 10, 12 or whatever number of things. It's really about finding stories that we can follow and take people on a journey that like with these 4 women and see how all of these issues unfold and what the fight looks like. So it's about the climate crisis, but it's also about how movement building happens, how people navigate new access to power that they hadn't had before, how things that are politically unimaginable suddenly become possible. And hopefully it does something without ever talking about climate anxiety, but gives you an entry point as a viewer that there's a place for you in this process and in this fight, and you can be part of it like from wherever you are. So I've talked a lot, but that's how I approach my work. All right, so next, I would, if each of you can talk a little bit about what's important to you about how you approach storytelling or use storytelling in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I similarly come from a place, I grew up in North Carolina and was fortunate to be introduced to environmental justice in the American South through a very specific lens and wastewater and sanitation, an issue that people don't often think about. We take flushing our toilets to be pretty for granted, but in many communities across this country, people cannot do that. And it was sort of through and meeting folks who are most on the ground and most proximate to these issues that I basically had a sort of shift in my understanding as who we ought to look to for our experts. Our experts ought to be people who are closest to the issues that are being experienced. And when it comes to the climate crisis, that needs to be the same case. And so building from there, I kind of left the policy and organizing world and kind of entered this one and learned a lot really quickly, but still wanted to sort of hold that sort of value at its core as to when it comes to storytelling, who ought to be our storytellers, and how do we approach and sort of work with those individuals, those communities, to sort of tell those stories. And so one of the things I've done recently, last year, I founded a magazine or a publication that's solely focused on environmental justice storytelling through a very narrative lens and a very data-driven lens. It's called The Margin. My co-founders at Earthrise Media were phenomenal in sort of creating that project. And in the last year and some change now, I've been directing and producing a film with Game Changer Films on climate justice, on this very topic. And so looking forward to chatting a little bit more about that, but I'll pass it on to my fellow panelists.
Thanks so much. My current role, well, as you heard described, I'm a recovering politician, so coming from a space of being in politics on a local and federal level. My current role is the executive director for Beyond Petrochemicals campaign, which is an initiative of Bloomberg Philanthropies. And our goal is to stop the expansion of 120 petrochemical facilities across this country, primarily seated in some of the most impacted spaces in this country: South Louisiana, South Texas, Houston Shipping Channel, Ohio, Pennsylvania, places where you have heard of the tragedies of petrochemicals, but they're the ones that roll off the news the next day. And they're the ones that are continuing to be impacted by our addictions to unnecessary plastics. Seriously, how many of you in this room do not know what spaghetti looks like? Because if you do, I should call your mothers. Why in the world do you need that little plastic window on the spaghetti box to tell you what spaghetti looks like? These are the spaces where, again, we see over and over and over again the industry has created an addiction for us to these plastics. In fact, I was introduced through Shori Myers, who also works at Bloomberg Philanthropies and runs this work. She had in one of her presentations a clip from the 1967 film, The Graduate, with Dustin Hoffman. And in the first few moments of this film, as Dustin Hoffman is returning home to his family, and everyone is celebrating him and can't wait to find out what he's going to do, and they keep asking him, what are you going to do? And he keeps going from room to room to room with all of this anxiety, and he finally goes outside and he meets this family friend that comes over and says, come here, I just want to say one word: plastics. As the career. That was in 1967. So the industry has always been here. This is not new. This is now a space where we are having to invent a response, but at the same time meet the moment of the climate crisis within a very short time period. That's why these stories are so important. And when I wrote Before the Streetlights Come On, Black America's Call for Climate Solutions, it was to create a space, it was to create a solution and to tell stories in a space that was not filled. Because I didn't see myself in climate action. I'm from Mississippi. I live in Mississippi on the land of the Choctaw and Chickasaw people. And when I was working as a mayor and being from the Mississippi Delta, I didn't think I was environmentalist. Environmentalists were white people who wore Birkenstocks, hugged trees, lived in California, and didn't eat bacon. I'm Southern. So I didn't see myself. It was very singular. It was not communal. It was not family. And that's where the problem lied for me, because my stories are very connected to the environment, very connected to climate. And they're also connected to every social justice issue that we have in this country, which I think is the intersectionalism that you were speaking of before. It is, yes, climate is connected to police brutality because it's hot. And the hotter it gets, the more agitated people get. And the fact that we have infrastructure disparities means that we're going to have more problems in Black and brown communities. Yes, climate is connected to voter turnout. Yes, it is connected to healthcare. And yes, there is an underpinning of all of this. How do we tell this in our stories? And I hope that we dig into that a bit more.
Thank you so much. I want to just add quickly, you just reminded me, like we're talking about the intersectionality. The other thing is I remember my first introduction to this work was through the environmental justice movement in New Orleans. And everyone who mentored and taught me were Black folks, Black women, who were like saying the things that we're talking about now, but yet somehow I never saw them in the climate movie. So that's why we're here. This movie. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is fascinating to hear more about it. So I'm Tricia Levesque. I'm the managing director of Decolonizing Wealth Project. So we're a nonprofit that exists to disrupt the flow of capital and move it towards the resources and places and communities that have been extracted and exploited from. So our mission is to offer truth, reconciliation, and healing through narrative change, education, and then radical reparative giving. And we do that through a fund called Liberated Capital. So a lot of the work that we want to do, we want to fund Indigenous and Black and other people of color-led organizations who are working on the ground, and that's a lot of what we do. But in terms of storytelling, our organization started out of a book from our founder and CEO, Edgar Villanueva. He's an enrolled member of the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina, and he wrote this book, Decolonizing Wealth, to disrupt philanthropy and finance and show a different way, a connected and community-based way to move resources and money, and to explain that it was never their money to begin with. That came from the stolen land and the stolen labor, and it's time to put it back. So, yes. So our work specifically within climate really centers on our Indigenous Earth Fund. We believe that Indigenous people need to be centered in this work. They have the traditions, the knowledge, and the ways of being that can really move us forward. And so our fund delivers resources to Indigenous-led climate and conservation groups, because we realized that a lot of times on the conservation end, we didn't see a lot of the diversity. So we wanted to make sure that we were funding Indigenous-led groups there. And we're also developing a Black and Indigenous farmer fund that we're going to be rolling out, and I can talk about that a little bit later if we have time. But our belief is that everybody's a storyteller. It's super important for us all to share our stories, and we also know that the people who are under-resourced have the stories that we need to hear. And so we're committed to driving resources to those communities on the ground, to the people on the ground, so that they can tell us what we need to do to move this forward and stop this crisis.
So I've obviously had a little bit of a non-traditional career trajectory going from, the very rank and file studio executive job and now working at the NRDC. And I think that the reason that I made that transition is I spent all of my career looking out at the world and thinking about, like, what are the stories that exist? What is everyone talking about? Like, what's happening to us as humans? And there were so many things that I cared incredibly deeply about that were, you know, challenges and problems in the world that needed to be fixed. And the thing that became clear to me over time was that the climate crisis was the one that bound everything together. And I think that, you know, there's been a lot of talk in the past 2 days in a really compelling way about how we need to break down the silos between all of the different issues and the way that it's almost like we're divided and conquered, you know, the way that we think about all of the different things. And I think that this truly is the moment where we have a finite amount of time in which we really can talk about solutions and implement solutions, and for all of us to come together and think of, you know, ourselves on this stage and everyone in this room as like, you know, a mobile tactical force. I mean, forgive me for using military language, but like where we can really kind of spread out and tackle this in all of the ways that are available to us through the different means that we have, through the different opportunities that come to us through our work, and through the different stories that we have to tell through our diverse experiences. And the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which was drilled into me as a studio executive, is like, think about the time frame. So, you know, earlier today, you know, we were talking about the IPCC report and how we basically have 6 years. So, you know, with my development executive hat on, like, how long is it going to take you to get a movie or a TV series from like A to Z? I mean, the only movie I've ever made in under a year was Step Up 2, because we walked into a room at Disney and they didn't think they wanted the movie. And John Chu, who's like one of the most brilliant salespeople I've ever worked with, convinced them in an hour that they wanted it. You know, by the end of that meeting, they were like, okay, so how about like February? Can you have the movie for us by February? It was June. We didn't have a script. They were like, can we read the script? John was like, yes. So over the weekend, John and a writer basically finished a script that was not done. And then from June to February, we made that movie. And I also got pregnant and made a human in that period of time and showed up at the premiere like this. But that's the fastest it's ever happened for me. And it's not possible to do it much more quickly than we did it with that movie, I don't think. And so that's the thing that I want us all to think about, is like the way the industry moves, the pace of the business. Like, there are so many stories of movies out there that have won Best Picture that took 10, 12 years in development. We do not have that time. And so one of the things that we talk about the most at Rewrite the Future is think about all of the different ways that climate can touch a story. You know, there's this preconceived notion that a climate movie is don't look up, and it's kind of, well, that's an allegory, but like that it's going to be all about climate and climate front and center. And I think the most important thing is think about all of the different ways that it touches our lives and all the different ways that it can touch a story organically in a way that enriches it. And then look at what content is out there that's already in the pipeline, right? There are so many TV series that once we're out of this strike will be active again. What are the ways that it can come up organically in those shows that are going to be on the air, you know, a few months from now? And what are all the movie franchises that are already in the pipeline? You know, we've got Marvel movies dated from here to eternity, like 5 of them a year. Let's start dropping it all into that, right? Because we don't have time. So let's be super strategic and let's just start deploying it in all of the different ways right now, right away.
Yeah, thanks. And I am the program director at the Redford Center. And the Redford Center, our mission is to advance environmental solutions through the power of stories that move. And the question that we naturally get is, well, what do you mean by solutions? And how can stories really advance solutions? And I think our answer to that is that storytelling itself can really reveal and extrapolate what solutions mean for us. And I'll share that to me, that means not just pointing towards a goal, but what does it take to get there? What's the journey that we're on, and what does it really take to implement change? And so we tell and we look specifically for stories that are showing us the humanity behind the goals that we're saying that we have, because solutions aren't solutions for everyone in the same way. And some solutions require sacrifices of other communities, of resources that we can't afford to lose. There are no clear solutions. So we're really in this moment in time where we have to make some really difficult decisions of what we choose to value moving forward. And I think that storytelling has an incredible way of illuminating for us, how are we going to show up and disagree with one another? How are we going to have resilience when we lose and we have to get back up and keep fighting? And so we really also prioritize stories that are community-led and grounded in self-determination of communities. So what are the solutions for the community that they themselves are determining? And this story should come from them. And so we want to elevate stories that are coming from communities that are already leading the way. They don't need top-down solutions. They don't need people to tell them what to do to implement, but they want to tell their story of what they're doing and what they need because they know what they need. And so it's thrilling to me to think about the power of storytelling in the context of really opening up this idea of what solutions means, because solutions at the end of the day are people. And people have to choose what comes next. And characters and narratives and stories can take us on this journey, like your film, Sabrina, to the end, where we see what it really takes of people to move things forward. And that's an incredible story. And that's the role that I think that storytelling has to play for all of us, is to open up how we're really talking about and advance our understanding and ideas of what are we working towards, how are we going to get there, and how are we going to be with one another as we go on this journey together and have to make a lot of really challenging decisions.
Thank you, Heather. Yes. And Heather, you said something else that made me, oh my God, I'm going to lose my train of thought. It's going to come back to me. Well, I'll ask my question and then it'll come. Oh, I know. When we're talking about the storytelling, one of the things, like, you know, we're very intentional about like what story you tell and what you hope the story can elevate and what narratives it can disrupt. One of the things that I feel very proud of, like regarding To the End, is that it is a record of how we got the most sweeping climate legislation in the history of this country. Because there's a way in which that the narrative is like, you know, Senators Schumer and Manchin finally got it together. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. So we have at least one record of like how we got there. And it's so many incremental steps. There's a way in which you can like sort of lose the forest for the trees or whatever the metaphor is, but that you don't like look back and you see like, wow, all of that led to this moment. But there's a way in which like moment to moment, like you can just lose it. And so another reason why it's important, and lose like who are the people that made it happen. So that's another thing that I just wanted, you reminded me of. So in terms of like the questions that we had planned, so I'm really glad that we did this to just kind of orient ourselves, is, you know, one of the things in, when we're talking about disrupting stories, is like one of the things that was really important to Rachel Lears and I, the director of the film and the producer of the film, was trying to disrupt this idea that the climate crisis can be solved just through consumer behavior or individual behavior, and that there's a way in which that's almost a little bit of like a gaslight, that like while we're all getting caught up about like how much are we recycling and things like that, and how that this is like the burden of the crisis is on individuals, the corporations and the fossil fuel industry that is poisoning everyone is left off the hook by the people. And if they're left off the hook by the people, then there is no political will, you know, for our representatives to do anything. And I think part of that too is to have folks understand really what the scale of the crisis is. It is not about just, I mean, you should recycle, but it's not about that. It's about like larger systemic change that needs to happen. So my question to you is like, when you're talking about a way forward in facing the climate crisis, the climate emergency, how do you feel that the conversation needs to advance or needs to shift? Anyone can start.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think we need to use these opportunities to help not only clarify, but define what we're talking about for our audiences in not a culturally relevant way, but also a way that is meeting this moment. So definitions of things, we say recycling. The industry, again, is brilliant because they've used recycling and turned around and created chemical recycling, which is basically burning plastics and creating more pollution in our communities. But they use our term of recycling. So now people get confused. Is recycling good? Is recycling bad? How and who determines what that is? Well, if we have in all of our movies what recycling is, why are we not using these again as different ways that we're helping people to understand and normalize these definitions through storytelling? I remember back in the 90s, we learned about the street, I'm putting it that way, through movies like Boys in the Hood, through New Jack City. You understood what the epidemic of crack was doing in Black and brown communities. That was our way of defining to the world what our experience is. And think about how many cultural terms that we clarified the meaning of them through those films. We can do the exact same thing with climate today. Where are the stories? Where is a Boys in the Hood type film about St. James, Louisiana, that is taking us through this journey of the lived experience of the people who are in that community? Because you can't tell me that it's not prevalent and that it doesn't help to shift the narrative of what's really going on. Because remember how you felt when you saw Boys in the Hood. For those of you who are not Generation X, I am. Go back and watch it, all of the Z generation, and I know the millennials have because your parents taught you well. But go back and think about how you felt, what you learned, what you knew, because those are the exact same emotions that directed you to action. It directed us to think about our actions. And we're still feeling that today when we look at different movements around violence in communities. We can take it all the way back. So we need those same stories now that are helping to normalize for us what the lived experience is in a dramatic way, as Reverend, my good friend and colleague, Reverend Yearwood said earlier today, in a way that connects us comically, romantically. I am really into the series right now, Sisters. I am on season 6. And I am just waiting for there to be something there about how, there's infertility issues because of the chemicals that are in the water that impact black women, because we know that exists. That storytelling should be a part of what we're doing.
Thank you. Bryce, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then Meredith.
No, thank you so much for mentioning that. I was just in St. James, Louisiana a couple of weeks ago with Shamel and Sharon Levine. And in the last year and a half or last couple of years, sort of seeing how the climate crisis or the climate movement has often been co-opted by these powerful industries, by billionaires, by folks with lots of money who see this opportunity as spending trillions and trillions of public and private dollars as an opportunity for them to make more money on the back end. This is money that, at least intended for most people, including the IRA, was to, of course, help us move in a direction to be able to solve the climate crisis, to be able to solve and sort of get to a place where we stay beneath that threshold that keeps the Earth at a level that is habitable for most folks on this planet. Unfortunately, a lot of this money is being spent in a way that is doing quite the opposite, and we see this in Louisiana. We're seeing this across the country where this money is being used to propose false solutions oftentimes that are completely unjust and often are at the expense of Black and brown and indigenous peoples. At the expense for whom? For folks with wealth, with folks with historical privilege and power, for white folks. And so when we talk about solutions, justice needs to be an important part of how we think about them, because in Louisiana, in Cancer Alley, one of the solutions that has been proposed is carbon capture. Carbon capture in Louisiana is being used to allow the petrochemical industry and the plastics industry to continue to pollute, expand, and continue to just grow at a level that will continue to harm the folks who have always been harmed at the end of the day. And so we must be critical when we think about what solutions are being proposed and who's proposing those solutions. In 2019 in Mississippi, there was an explosion of a pipeline that was transporting carbon dioxide. To transport carbon dioxide, you must highly pressurize it. You have to put it below freezing so it becomes in a liquid state to be able to move over miles and miles and miles. And it was in Satarsha, Mississippi, where in the wee hours of the morning or the late hours of the night, it was dark. And there was an explosion. And when carbon dioxide explodes, or when carbon dioxide in a large sort of form just sort of spreads, it's extremely dense, so it just stays really close to the ground and just spreads across the area. Folks described it, and I've listened to the 911 calls, as white, as green, as a mist. And you hear on these calls people calling for help because their friends cannot breathe. And their cars no longer work. Their combustion engines no longer work. Carbon dioxide is an asphyxiant, meaning that you cannot breathe when you're surrounded by it. Your engine, your combustible engine no longer works because it needs oxygen in order to operate. And so you're calling for emergency vehicles to come save you or your friend, but they can't even get through because those emergency vehicles also operate on the same combustion engines. Fortunately, no one died, but many folks still are suffering from those consequences to this day. And you're telling me that you want to put carbon dioxide pipelines throughout the entire Gulf Coast, up the Mississippi River, extending to the Dakotas and across this country? You're kidding. That's just one way in which it doesn't work. That's assuming that you even capture the carbon to be able to store it in the first place. Now, I'll stop there, but there are so many things that we need to reconsider, especially as we're spending in this moment. What is a climate transition versus a just transition? These differences, these nuances matter. We must be strategic, because if the only people who survive at the end of the day are white folks and rich folks, then that's not a world I want to be a part of.
Meredith, did you want to?
Yes, I think the thing that I was going to say, just thinking about the stories and the stories that we tell, and I think you made a really important point about the individual carbon footprint calculator and the way that we're all kind of, stuck in these narratives where it's made to feel like it's our individual responsibility, and the blame is really sort of misplaced for all of the things that we've been describing on this panel that humans have experienced. And I think humanizing these stories is incredibly important, but I think that there's also the truth that really needs to be addressed in this country, which is looking at big business, looking at how big business operates, right? Like, we're in this incredible moment right now where the Inflation Reduction Act is going to incentivize a lot of innovations and a lot of progress, but a lot of progress that needs to be watched very carefully, and in order to avoid, the sort of inevitable avalanche of greenwashing that's going to happen when, big business, again, in some cases, turns around and tries to hoodwink all of us. And so I think that that's the thing that I think people, our collective power is, a lot of the time to these big businesses, we're not people, we're wallets, and we're sources of attention. Like, it's all about dollar signs. And so I think we really need to think as a collective how we can mobilize our power and hold the businesses that we keep operational through our own, hold them accountable for their actions, because the dollar can't drive everything, and I think that it has for such a long time, and that's how we've ended up in this place where we're destroying our planet and destroying the people who live on it.
Did you want to say something? Or okay, good.
Thank you, by the way. Our innovation as a philanthropic intermediary, which means that we're a nonprofit that receives grants and donations from individuals. We have a giving community, and then we also receive it from institutions. But our innovation was to fund Indigenous communities. Globally, they are the biggest protectors of our biodiversity. But when we look at the philanthropic funding, it's 0.3% for the climate work. And so really wanting to shift that and, again, move resources to the folks that are actually on the ground doing the work and have some solutions that aren't really currently part of the equation. It's certainly a yes and. We definitely want to work, obviously, with the existing motions that are in place, but then adding to it those traditions and wisdom. So that would be one of our major innovations. And then, again, looking at how land theft and land loss within Black and Indigenous communities also impacts climate and agriculture. And to everybody's point that's, I think, talked here, it's so intersectional. As a racial justice organization, climate is inherently part of everything that we touch. And so we're wanting to make sure that we're looking at the people who are so under-resourced but have so much rich wealth. And I have plenty of stories to share just about, I think we get to a question hopefully about the positive things that we're seeing. And so I'll share them then, but just wanted to add that that's where we're sitting.
Well, that's actually a really great setup for the next question, because I think we can start talking about the positive things. So one of the things that we said we would talk about a little bit is what do we each advocate for when we are discussing solutions or adaptations in the work that we do. So for me, like, again, with this film, you know, we keep saying intersectionality. Like, I felt like it was just really, what was really moving for me was that, you know, framing the film around the Green New Deal was really about saying that the climate crisis has to, like, racial and economic justice has to be part of the solution. You know, there may be different solutions, but there is no solution without those being centered. And so for me, that is something that I feel like is almost like a mantra of like what needs to be elevated for us to have a real climate justice. And when we look at the IRA, people often call it the GND and Green New Deal in disguise. I mean, but it's quite a compromise that even with all of the things, the good things that it does, none of those good things would happen without the movements, for one thing. And the other thing is that at the end of the day, it's the floor. It is not the ceiling. And we have to remember, it's not like, oh, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, everything's all good. But like, there is still more to do. There's still like concessions to the fossil fuel industry that still hurt the same people that it always hurt. So so for me, that's maybe not, you can talk more about like the good thing, but I think what's really great about that is that the IRA happened as a result of that vision and that commitment to that intersectional approach to the crisis. So Trisha, I don't know if you want to pick up from there.
Sure, yeah. So a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, we had an Indigenous Earth Fund. That's our fund that to date we've given over $2 million to Indigenous-led organizations. We're about to do another $1 million this year. Yay! So our individual donors who are part of our Liberated Capital community have a chance to hear from our partners who are doing the work. And there was one group, Lakota tribe, and their organization is called Siachangu, I believe, and they were talking about how they were focused on the buffalo and how they have 28,000 acres where about 1,500 buffalo are coming, and they're revitalizing the Great Plains Prairie. And the story was that they didn't see themselves, the humans, as the solution, but rather that the buffalo, the bison, had these solutions. They were just providing space and land for this regeneration. And it was so beautiful. And it's those kinds of stories that we have the opportunity to hear from when we resource the people that have the ability to do this. So that was one of my favorites.
Anyone else want to share something?
Yeah, I'd love to share that, particularly in the context of storytelling, because that's who we mostly supported, storytellers. You know, I think we see a lot of people try to implement climate into their writing, into their work, and we seem to see a lot of pointing to the problems and focusing and sort of getting stuck at ringing the alarm bells, but then what comes next and what is the next step for implementing something, or leaving us with a feeling that we can do something, that we have agency in this situation. And so one of the things that I really hope and encourage to do through the work of the Redford Center is to say, what are the solutions? And maybe we haven't imagined them yet. And can we stay in a phase of staying open and being inspired by all of the incredible work that is happening that we're really not hearing enough about. If you start working in climate, and for many of you who do here, I'm sure you hear the incredible work that's being led by people in their communities, by indigenous groups, by environmental justice groups, by frontline activists, by youth activists, and it doesn't just start and stop at clean tech and innovation. It really is so many people out there trying to address this emergency, and those stories are worth telling. And I think our stories shouldn't stop at point to the problem and make it a backdrop of our story, but how do we push even further and say, learn from what we're learning right now in this moment, what has caused us to be here, and how do we dream and imagine and show a world and a society that is inspired by better ways of thinking, better ways of being with one another, more fair, more just systems, ones that don't trap us in what we have been given, ones that open up possibility. And so my hope is that, and the challenge for everyone listening in here today, is if you are a storyteller, dream and think about what could be instead of where we are stuck. How are we going to go forward? And let's not get stuck up by just ringing the alarm bells, because people have heard it. But if you go looking, there are really incredible solutions, and there is really incredible work happening that we have to spotlight, and we have to lean into that. How are we going to go forward?
I think that's actually a really important idea to think about. Like, how do we make the potential for the world that we could build so incredibly shiny and enticing that people just can't resist the idea of it, that they are like, we have to get out there and have this. Like, if you look, I know that our country has a lot of deep problems, and I'm not trying to deny this when I say this, but American entertainment gets banned in a lot of countries because some of the ideas that's in our entertainment, democracy, I don't know, women driving their own cars, whatever it may be, is so provocative in certain cultures that they literally don't want to show it because they don't want people to know that the possibility of it exists. And I think that that's the opportunity that we have here. Like, make it so enticing that people cannot resist, that they just feel they have to have it. And it isn't just like, someone put up a great slide yesterday of just like, the EV parked in the driveway of the modern looking house. Like, it's not that. Like, I'm not jumping out of my skin to have that. I mean, that would be great, right? It's all the other things that you just have to have.
I absolutely agree. I'm advocating for normalizing inclusivity. We're talking here in Hollywood, but there's also Bollywood and Nollywood, and they're all dealing with the exact same issues. And so as we begin to normalize this in a way that is inclusive and centering justice, we are now reaching beyond these geopolitical borders to really meet something that is impacting every single one of us. I will say this one thing. Last year, I had the privilege of being contacted by Netflix to rewrite the end of Don't Look Up. And they contacted 12 climate activists. It was really funny to me because Dr. Catherine Hayhoe had to message me and say, did you get something from Netflix? And I said, absolutely. They gave me my list of things I'm supposed to be watching for this next month. So I was like, yeah. She's like, no. You need to go look in your box. You have something from Netflix, Heather. And myself, Reverend Yearwood, Jane Goodall, we were in that group of people that rewrote a positive ending to Don't Look Up. And I encourage you to go to Netflix Tundum and look at what we came up with. I'll give you a little clip in Mind Black Women Save the World. But all of these diverse ways of thinking about how we can be a solution, these are the things that we need to normalize. That's what I'm advocating for, and that's what I'm very proud to be a part of with Beyond Petrochemicals and what Bloomberg is doing. There are a lot of millionaires and billionaires doing a lot of things with their money these days, but Bloomberg has put over $1 billion into climate work just over this past year, and I think these are the spaces where we have a huge opportunity to be an example, to show others that if we are willing to put our money into indigenous communities, if we're able to support at the level where the work and the experience is happening, then we are now being an incubator of creative solutions, and the world is open to us. And that's what I really want to be a part of.
And real quickly, I think in sort of the process of making this film that will come out next year, that's focused on climate justice, one of the things that we've been thinking about the most is how can we reinterpret our relationship to the planet, and how can we reinterpret our relationship to each other? One of the things that in Western societies most often we sort of think as the earth as something that we own and something that we can sort of produce and take things from, when in fact our indigenous brothers and sisters and siblings and the Black folks that I've been been with in the South for so long, and brown folks across this country have all sort of said that the things that we need to sort of understand is that in fact there's a level of reciprocity there. There's things that we can give back to the planet, and there's a relationship that is there to be had, and it's in that mind shift that we can sort of adopt in our storytelling that I hope will just sort of be able to start from a new plane to think about what do those just climate futures look like.
You want to say?
Yeah, just one addition. I'm going to come back to money because that's where we live at Decolonizing Wealth Project. But we also know that there are folks who are opposed to this work, this climate work. There have been narrative strategies put in place from folks who are in opposition. They're heavily resourced. And so one of the things we're mindful of is that it's a very white nationalist mentality, and it's time for us to uproot that. We need resources moved to support the work that these people are doing on the stage, that the folks, our grantee partners, that we're doing. It's imperative. It is yes to the stories and to content and to media, but literally the strategies that have been put in place is what we're seeing coming through right now. And so for us, it's a very urgent for folks to invest. It's amazing with Bloomberg, but just the money really needs to move, and we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think it's also, part of the reason that we all feel like, fossil fuels are perhaps a necessary evil of our society is because the fossil fuel companies started putting that in textbooks in schools decades ago, and I think that we're behind the 8 ball here, but that doesn't mean that we still can't, that there aren't options available to us. But I just think it's really important to think about all of those, every time that something feels impossible or too big, to remember that that's actually a deliberately constructed narrative that's popping up in your head to make you feel sad and defeated and want to sit on your couch at home alone and cry or whatever, all of those things are constructed and placed, and ignore them.
I'll also build off what you said, Trisha, and say that to me, the entertainment industry is not excused from what you just brought up. We are consolidating wealth here, and we do need to move resources and money to people that are independent storytellers, that are telling these stories, that are using them as tools for their survival and their advocacy. And it is really important that we're creating pathways and pipelines for people to have those stories reach mainstream audiences as well. And so a redistribution of wealth and power here in Hollywood is also a really important part of making sure that we're not just telling a singular climate story, a singular future story, but one that is inviting and supporting so many different visions that we have yet to see and are totally underfunded and under-resourced.
So I actually have a question around money, you actually set it up again, Trisha, but one thing I want to point out is yes, folks that are not wanting to see this change have a lot of resources, and they are telling stories all the time. When you see these commercials or public service announcements with hazy, beautiful lighting and lovely families, and it's, they are telling stories all the time. And I think part of their storytelling too is the kinds of the sort of fostering the attitude around sort of climate despair. See, you can't win. When To the End premiered at Sundance, it was before the Inflation Reduction Act. This is right when Build Back Better had failed. So the first reaction was oh, well, see, you lost, whatever. But it's no. Even with Build Back Better failing, the way we move the movement moved the needle that as recently as 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't even be having a conversation about the Inflation Reduction Act. So again, it's important to have the record that this is what happened. We started here and ended up there. Don't listen to them when they say that you can't do it, that it's all forget it, just give up, whatever. And that's what stories do. Because even with that not winning, it was but look where we got, this conversation, this would not, it would have been considered completely crazy in 2016, during the 2016 election, as recently as that. So that's just something that I just want to, amplify, because that's real. Well, thank you. And connected to that is the money piece. So my question is, how do we, in media and in this entertainment ecosystem, leverage the wealth in this community to support this work, to support the storytelling, to support the initiatives, to support the impact campaigns that go with the storytelling. Because let me tell you, like we're doing, impact campaign with the work, and you know about doing impact campaigns, which I describe, as like it's the activism around the film, that using the film as a tool to go out in the world and do the work that you want it to do. For us, we are focused on frontline and BIPOC communities, and I won't get into all the details about that, but it is costly. Everything, it costs a lot of money. So this is a really wealthy industry. What do we do?
I mean, honestly, like I think that this, the way that this business functions is like there's a group of people who are innovating, who are imagining, who are coming up with like the new storytelling forms and like blowing the doors off the business. And that happens every so often. And then every time that happens, then everyone runs around repeating those successes for a period of time, right? And I think the track record is beginning to build. We can sit and we can look at, Avatar or storylines in Big Little Lies and Ted Lasso and, all of the examples of stories that have integrated climate and environment and succeeded creatively, commercially. And I think that we need to keep building on those, using all of our inventiveness and also all of the storytelling skills that we have to make really commercial, successful stories that everybody is going to want to replicate. Like that is the sort of pragmatic way, frankly, to get it done. And I think that the other thing that really resonated with me yesterday morning when Daniel Kwan was talking, he was talking about the business and how the business has this calcified narrative that, certain stories work and certain stories don't. And that's happened throughout history. Like when I started out in the business, I worked at a company that was, a company that was foreign pre-sales driven, and everyone would say, well, these movies work internationally and these movies don't. And there were a lot of like really scary assumptions that went along with that. And everybody kind of bought into them until it became clear that that actually wasn't how you necessarily had to make movies, And I think that that's, continuing to throw rocks at those calcified narratives is ultimately how we're going to get through this together. It's like we're kind of, when I was listening to Daniel talk, I was thinking about how like we're basically kind of, not only is the climate crisis already here, but like the zombie apocalypse is already here. Like we are surrounded by the climate zombies. Like all of the people who have not woken up yet for whatever reason to the fact that the climate crisis is an issue that affects them personally and affects everyone that they know and all of us every day. And there are lots of different forms of climate zombies, right? Like there are the ones who are the capitalist zombies, and then there are like the zombies who are just underinformed. And it's like, what are the strategies for waking all of them up? Like we just have to wake them up and activate them and mobilize them and get those calcified narratives out of their heads.
I think we are talking about too spending money but not making money. And in the industry, to the best of my knowledge, there's also making money. I want people to buy my book. I didn't just write it just to get it out of my head. I did, but still. There's the making money part. And we had a great conversation a little earlier, actually out in the lobby, talking about the clean energy playbook, right? And how that, even as we're supporting that, someone said, where's the soundtrack for climate? Which makes all the sense in the world, because now we have the music industry and it's creating a product. Climate change and climate action has to be a product. Where is the sustainable crayons that are in the Happy Meal box that are branded to the last climate movie? Because I can go and get a character, but now when I go to pull through to a restaurant, where are the sustainable branded reusable straws that have the hero from the last climate movie that's there? Where are the products that people can go in and we can say, no, this is not just a good feel thing to do for the environment, but now you are making money, putting money, creating entrepreneurs, and now an industry where people see themselves as a part of the solution, and they're feeding their families. They have jobs. I think we also need to talk about this as a product from the industry, and a product that we can leverage, and a product that we can grow.
Yeah, and I think that so much of the business, like merchandise, around entertainment content is a major driver in the business. And if we revolutionize also the what that merchandise looks like and feels like and how it's made, if it's made sustainably, and studios and streamers want that, they're going to create the demand. You know, people in the toy business will start to innovate and make toys in a way that's sustainable. I mean, I think that there is like an incredible opportunity to like rebuild in lots of ways.
If I can just interject a little bit, I mean, I'm hearing everything that everyone's saying, and you're talking about, like, you know, part of why it's so costly is because when you're doing this work, you want to pay people, you know, like on a very basic level. I remember I made a film. I won't get into the details of the film, but I remember we were doing an impact campaign, and part of the story of this, it was a story of a family who are dealing with economic insecurity. They will simply tell you that they are poor, but there was this big conference on economic insecurity, and they wanted the family to come and be on a panel. This is a big institution. I won't say what the institution was, but they didn't want to pay them for their time to be there on the panel to talk about being poor. I mean, this is the sort of like culture that we've sort of fostered, that somehow the work that we do, it's probably the most expensive art form on the one hand, but it's the one that people just extract from and don't think that anything that we do with that work costs anything. So I just don't know like how to crack that nut. So you have a Heather?
We demand it. We demand it.
Yeah,
we absolutely demand it. There's nothing that irks me more than exactly what you just said, because we see it so often. So oftentimes, the experts call in the community experts and then say, we'll give you $50 to come for this time, because in their brain they're saying, well, $50 is a great hourly wage for you to spend an hour of time. No, I'm sorry. When you go and get that scientist from MIT to come and be an expert, you're not paying for their hour of time. You're paying for the years and expertise. But what about the expertise of people who lived in a community? What about the 40 and 50 years and generational expertise they have of seeing the transitions in that community? There's a value to that. And you're absolutely right. We not only have to pay people, we have to pay people over what is livable wage, but pay them for the climate expertise that they have. And as we begin to understand that, that's a power struggle, I think. That's a whole nother panel.
But that takes investment, and that takes a culture shift, like in this, like again in this ecosystem, to like pay, like do it. Like with the example that I gave, I just said no. I took a chance and just said no, and they actually managed to get money out of their petty cash and had to meet them around the corner. They gave me cash to pay the. I mean, it was so systemic that like they couldn't even in this big institution. It wasn't limber enough for them to move the money to just pay them properly, because that's just not even on the. It's not a priority even. So this person had to go through all kinds of changes through petty cash or something to pay them. But I was like, this has to happen, because I cannot, in good conscience, make a film like this, and then you're exploiting them to come back. It's just bananas. Anyway.
Yeah. If I could add one final thought, because I know we've got our red light telling us we gotta go.
See?
No, it's all good. I just want to just deeply acknowledge what was just said, which is, Sabrina, you held the line, and that's what we all have to do. And my answer to this question is community organizing. That is the purpose of this event. Like, this is not something, this is systemic. This is how we just naturally operate in this industry. We have the power to show up every day and advocate for something different. We're even more powerful when we do that together as a community, and we're showing up and we're having these discussions of what needs to change, what can be different, how can we be different. And things don't get made without us. They don't get made without the ideas, the art direction, the producers. This isn't just a top-down issue. Again, like, this is a community organizing issue. We have so much more power in this community than we ever exercise towards this. How do we flex this muscle? How do we show up for each other and make these changes that we know need to be made? We don't have to accept this anymore. and we can hold the line. And I really look forward to holding the line with all of you who care about this and know what needs to happen. And we have to do it together, and we need more spaces like this to affirm one another and be stronger together.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for the, I didn't even notice the
I'm so
red
sorry,
light.
that's
I
also
need sirens. I don't know. I got
being
so caught up in the
producer and having to call it out. I'm so sorry.
No, it's great. No, it's great. So since we have about 15 minutes, I just want to give each panelist an opportunity to share anything that that hasn't come up that you really want to share, and like with whatever time, we can just keep talking. But I just want to make sure that nothing gets left, on the floor, whatever the expression is. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to just call on people. Who wants to go first?
I'll
Okay,
jump in.
there you go.
And speaking about how do we get the stories out there, how do we change the market? I mean, I'm not actively in that space right now in one way, but we do fund folks who make content. And one grantee partner is Children of the Setting Sun Productions, and they did a film about salmon called Salmon People, and it's about the Coast Salish people and just the impact of salmon loss. And so for us as Decolonizing Wealth Project and wanting to provide space and opportunity for people, that's one way, is that philanthropy and finance and Hollywood can definitely move resources to folks who are already creating this content. It may not be the scale of Step Up, which I love, by the way, but it's still impactful. And so for me, it's important for me to name that here as someone who supported the film, that they're out there, the stories are out there, and we need to move more resources to them. That's certainly our intent. And I'm excited to see how we can do more of that together.
So let me frame it, instead of leaving it as a sort of freestyle, free stream of conscious free-for-all, let me ask like a more pointed question. If you could share anything, like in terms of our final thoughts, in terms of anything that you see happening that is inspiring. If there's more thoughts about money, we can keep going with that. Or if there's anything that in your work right now that you're excited about, or what you think the role of storytellers need to be in this moment and in this context. So any of those that you want to address.
I'll go ahead and go fast because I don't think we have 15 minutes. I think we have less than 5, if that.
No, until 3:30, right?
No.
Oops. Oh.
So my ask is you don't leave this conversation here, that you take what we have talked about here and then you immediately repeat it. Social media is amazing. You should be tweeting this out right now. You should be on TikTok, using all Instagram channels, using and including every aspect of media into this conversation so that we are not keeping it just in this auditorium, but we are spreading it around the world. I think that's how we really not only make significant change, but we see immediate action. I titled the book Before the Street Lights Come On because in the Black community that means something. It means you need to move your behind now. It is a verb, it is a call to action, and that's what we have to do. So take a action today and then let that action continue to repeat, and that action in and of itself says justice.
Wow. I think we'll end on that note. Thank you so much to everyone for your insight and wisdom and amazing work, and thank you all for being here. And I think we're all on the app thing, so you can follow our work. Again, To the End is on Hulu and all kinds of platforms, and we're easy to find. So thank you so much.
Fantastic, you guys. One more round of applause. Let them hear it. That was really amazing. You guys can go. It's okay. You don't have to. I'm not holding you hostage. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I want to make a quick announcement, just programming-wise. I know I left you with a cliffhanger when I left. All right, we'll finish that up later. I want to tell you about the lies. Okay, I have big ideas. But I do have to make a programming announcement. In the lobby, there's a workshop that started just a few minutes ago, so you're not too late if you do want to make it. It's on social media and how to make change with that. So that's happening outside in the lobby. If you want to stay for our next panel, that's going to be right here. It's going to start in about 10 minutes. So empty those bladders, okay? And then come on right back here. We're going to start in 10. See you then.
Put a line in the rhyme and a little more fun. Put a line in the rhyme and a little more fun.